Good afternoon and welcome to Wholesome Roots. Today I'm going to teach you how to make raw goat milk yogurt. Now most yogurts are pasteurized before they're made, so it ruins any of the raw properties in the milk. I prefer to do the raw method instead. The yogurt does tend to come out thinner and not as thick, but I'm okay with that because the health benefits of the raw outweigh the desire and need to have it thicker. There are some alternative ways that you can address the thickness, such as straining it through a piece of butter muslin. It's similar to cheesecloth but with finer weave. Or you could add some gelatin, or you could add some rennet, which is what I'm going to try to do today. And something that I found with my last batch that we really enjoyed as a family was, even though it was rennie, and we use it in smoothies most of the time anyway, or the kids drink it as a yogurt drink, with a little bit of honey, forget about it. They love it. Yeah, if you puree a little bit of strawberry into that, even better. But one of the things that we did last time is we added chia seed to the yogurt. And boy, it thickened it up nicely, and it added that nice extra nutritional level. So don't feel like just because your yogurt's gonna be thin, it's a reason to not try the raw yogurt. So we're doing it with goat milk, obviously, because we have goats here on our homestead. If you're interested in any of those goat videos, I'm gonna leave a playlist up here or over here, wherever it shows up. And we enjoy the health benefits of goat milk over cow milk because it's much more nutritious and much easier to digest. Plus it's a lot easier to care for goats than it is cows, in my opinion. So for us, it's what's worked best for our family, and we will continue making our products as raw as we can. So the yogurt that I'm making today, it's heating up now on the stove. I've got about 2 gallons, I would say, maybe a little bit less, because 2 gallons would be all the way up to the top. I have my thermometer in there to make sure I don't get too hot. Most recipes will tell you to pasteurize it and bring it all the way up to 160, 170, 190 degrees. I'm gonna tell you, if you want to keep it raw, you want to keep it between 90 and 110. So when it hits 110 degrees, that's as high as I'll let it go. And then I'm going to take it off the heat. A lot of times I take it off the heat even at 90 degrees, but often it goes from 90 to 110 pretty quick, so sometimes I don't catch it right then. And then you want to bring it down closer to 90 degrees before adding your culture, to make sure that your culture won't be killed off by the higher heat. Cultures vary greatly. There's a great company called Cultures for Health. They sell various degrees of yogurt starters, all different kinds. You can also just get mesophilic culture and thermophilic cultures that are good to use with yogurt, cheese, really almost anything in your culturing with milk products. So I am actually going to use a packet of each. Most of the time, I save yogurt from my last batch, or I start my yogurt with store-bought yogurt. I am completely out of yogurt because we put chia seed in all of it, and I forgot to save some aside. So I'm using a thermophilic and mesophilic culture. The reason why I'm using both is because, let's face it, I'm a busy mom, and if I space and I forget to make sure that it's warm enough inside the oven, or if it gets too cold or too hot, I don't want that culture to be killed. So with the thermophilic culture, you want it to stay at 110 degrees during incubation, and with the mesophilic, you want it to stay at around 70 degrees room temperature. It can stay on your countertop. What I do to culture any of my yogurts, no matter what culture I'm using, is I put it in the oven with the oven light on. The oven light adds just enough warmth to the oven to keep that culture at just the right temperature, so that in 8 to 12 hours or 6 to 12 hours, if you like it a little less sour, the longer you leave it culturing, the more tart it's gonna get. So that is the basic procedure that we go through for making our raw goat milk yogurt. It's very important to know that the equipment that you're going to use is going to be non-reactive. You want to use a stainless steel pot because it does not react with the acid that you're going to be creating with the cultures. You also want to use either stainless steel or plastic or wooden spoon. I prefer not to use wooden because wooden spoons tend to hold whatever flavors that they were used on last. So if you just sauteed some onions with that a couple of weeks ago and it's been washed and everything, still milk is very sensitive. It picks up any flavors. So it's very important that you do it with something that doesn't have any of those funky flavors. Speaking of funky flavors, a lot of you know that I love my Instant Pot. I use my Instant Pot for a lot of things. I do not use my Instant Pot for yogurt. The reason why is because Instant Pots tend to hold that smell of pot roast. They kind of always smell. If you have an Instant Pot, you already know this. When you pull that lid off and it's clean inside, you still get an aroma of pot roast. So I wouldn't ever want to have my yogurt made in the same Instant Pot as I make my other savory foods. Milk is very absorbent of scents and flavors, so you do not want it to be in an open container in the fridge because it will absorb any of the flavors in the fridge, or left out on the counter or anything. You always want to have it nice and covered, and don't use wooden spoons that have been used on onions, and don't use Instant Pots that have been used for pot roast. If you have a designated Instant Pot for making yogurt, that's great. Otherwise, you might get some funky flavors in your yogurt. A lot of the culture instructions when you're getting a yogurt culture, like the thermophilic or mesophilic or other types of cultures available, will tell you to take a quart of milk and pasteurize it and start your culture in that. And that can be your starter for using with other cultures. Well, I kind of felt guilty about doing that because I was killing my raw culture. I wanted a raw culture. Even if it's going to be slightly different every time from the bacteria that are in my milk, I wanted to give it a chance to be a raw milk culture still. Raw all the way from the beginning. So I've experimented with it and it's been a great success. I don't have to culture it first like the instructions say. I just add it to the milk at the same time as I would any other culture, like a fresh yogurt that I add to the milk. So just so you know, you can do it the way the instructions say, or you can be brave and try it my way. So as we bring it up to temperature on medium heat, I constantly stir. I want to make sure that nothing sticks to the bottom of the pan or scalds. And you can see I'm getting really close to my target temperature. That's the top temperature there is the temperature it's reading, 88 degrees. So pretty soon here I will be turning off the burner and adding my two cultures. Who wants to guess what the next thing I'm making is? The dates are the big clue. I'm making my Mona bars and I'm going to share the recipe with you guys. Alright, so the temperature went up to 100 rather fast, but I've turned off the heat and I'm letting it cool down just a little bit before I add my rennet in culture. You don't have to add rennet. That is just something I'm attempting today because I have some rennet and I've heard a lot of people use that to thicken their yogurt, so I'm just going to add a couple of drops and see what happens. Rennet is a natural thickener that's used often in making cheese. Alright, so the temperature has come down. I'm going to add my culture, whether you're using an active yogurt start or a prepackaged purchased culture, that's fine. I'm going to add a little bit of rennet, a couple of drops of rennet, not really counting, you know, when I use a gallon of milk for cheese, I think it's something like 30 drops. So I'm just gonna put a few drops. Like I said, this is an experiment. You don't have to use the rennet. And I whisk it so that it's thoroughly incorporated into the milk, making sure that every little bit of it goes down and is dissolved into the milk. And then all you have to do is either put the lid on and put it in the oven with the light on, or at this point you can pour it into separate jars. if you want to. Something I've done in the past is poured it into pint jars or into jelly jars, and then it's perfect serving size, ready for people to grab for lunch. But today I'm just gonna leave it in the pan for time's sake. I need to get on to my next project. So I want to hurry up and just put this in the oven with the light on, and tomorrow I can put it into different bowls or dishes that I want to use. So remember, you can culture this for anywhere from 6 to 12 hours or even up to 24 hours. It's just gonna get more sour. Sometimes it even gets a little bit more thick the longer you culture it. So I like to do a 12-hour culture on mine, so I'm just gonna put it in the oven and forget about it until the morning. Thank you guys for watching. You know the drill. We'll see you next time on Wholesome Roots.